From getting shot in a barber's chair, to being betrayed by your own underboss, to dying from a heart attack right before getting arrested, this is how every major mafia boss died. And while some mobsters built empires that lasted decades, others got whacked within months of taking power. Like Albert Anastasia, who walks into the barbershop on October 25, 1957. He sits in the chair, leans back, closes his eyes for a shave. Routine, comfortable, safe. That's when two men in masks kick through the door. They shove the barber aside, guns out. Anastasia jumps up, confused, panicked, and starts swinging at what he thinks are his killers. But he's punching the mirror, fighting his own reflection while bullets tear through him. The shooters keep firing until he collapses on the tile, blood pooling beneath the chair. They say you never see it coming. Anastasia dead, he just couldn't tell what was real. But if you think dying confused is bad, imagine dying betrayed. April 15th, 1931, Giuseppe Massaria, Joe the Boss, sits at a restaurant in Coney Island, playing cards, laughing. His lieutenant, Lucky Luciano, sits across from him. What Massaria doesn't know is that Luciano already sold him out, cut a deal with a rival boss named Salvatore Maranzano. In the middle of the game, Luciano stands up, walks away, leaves him sitting there alone. Moments later, gunmen storm in. Bullets rip through the air. Massaria takes rounds to the head, the back, the chest. He slumps over the table, cards still in his hand. The shooters vanish into the street. Massaria was one of the most feared men in New York, but he got greedy, started a war called the Castellamarese War. His side took heavy losses. Luciano saw the cracks forming. When Maranzano offered him a promotion to turn on his boss, he took it. Massaria's death ended the war. Maranzano crowned himself boss of all bosses. But here's the thing about betrayal. It's a circle. A few months later, Maranzano sits in his Manhattan office. He's called Luciano in for a meeting, plans to kill him. What he doesn't know is that Luciano already found out. Four men dressed as tax agents walk into the building. They disarm the guards, rush to Maranzano's office. They stab him multiple times, then shoot him for good measure. He bleeds out in his chair that afternoon. Why would Maranzano want Luciano dead after Luciano helped him win? Because Maranzano wanted more than power. He wanted worship, gave himself the title boss of all bosses, started comparing himself to Julius Caesar. To Luciano, he looked less like a leader and more like a king. Kings don't last long in this world. Luciano's crew understood that, especially Bugsy Siegel. June 20th, 1947, Beverly Hills. Benjamin Siegel is sitting on a sofa reading the Los Angeles Times. Then without warning, bullets shred through the window, his face, his chest. One shot destroys his left eye. He dies right there where he sat. Siegel was practically a celebrity, one of the most famous mobsters in America. He was building Las Vegas, running the Flamingo Casino with mob money. But the project drained cash, opened before it was finished, went over budget. His partners thought he was stealing from them. Siegel became a liability. To this day, nobody knows who gave the final order. But I know this: when you owe dangerous men money, the bill always comes due. Now, some bosses didn't die in private. They died in front of witnesses. December 16th, 1985, outside Sparks Steakhouse in Manhattan, Paul Castellano, boss of the Gambino crime family, steps out of his car. Gunmen rush him, open fire. Castellano goes down. His driver, Thomas Bolito, is killed beside him. Across the street, sitting in a car, watching, John Gotti, making sure it's done right. The hit was surgical. Gotti's team waited in the freezing cold wearing long coats and Russian fur hats to hide their faces. When Castellano's black Lincoln pulled up at exactly 5:25 p.m., rush hour, streets packed with Christmas shoppers, the killers moved like shadows. It was over in seconds. Dozens of people saw it, but nobody could identify the shooters. Why did Gotti do it? Because Castellano ran the family like a business, not a brotherhood. He banned drug dealing, cutting off millions in revenue, and he was talking about breaking up Gotti's crew. If Gotti didn't move first, his life was next on the list. A few weeks later, John Gotti became the new boss of the Gambino family. But not every boss died from bullets. Some got warnings. May 2nd, 1957. Frank Costello walks into his Manhattan apartment building. A man approaches, fires a shot. The bullet goes through his head, but he survives. The shooter is Vincent Gigante, acting on orders from Vito Genovese. The message is clear: your time is over. Within days, Costello stepped aside. Genovese took control. Sometimes survival is just another kind of death. But then there's Carlo Gambino, the man whose name became a dynasty. After Anastasia was murdered in 1957, Gambino took control. By the 1960s, he was running the commission, guiding the entire American Mafia. Unlike flashier bosses, Gambino stayed in the shadows, avoided cameras, rarely saw prison. He understood something the others didn't. The quieter you are, the longer you last. October 15, 1976, the 74-year-old mob boss spent his evening watching the Yankees win the pennant. Hours later, the heart disease that had haunted him for years finally took him. He died at home, peacefully. The best way out for a man in his position. But even in death, he caused chaos. Instead of handing power to his underboss, he chose his brother-in-law, Paul Castellano, as successor. That decision split the family, and it's what led to Castellano's execution in 1985. Which brings me back to John Gotti. After taking out Castellano, Gotti became the boss, but he didn't act like one. He wore designer suits, smiled for cameras, loved the spotlight. The media called him the Dapper Don, but all that attention made him a target. In 1991, his underboss, Sammy the Bull Gravano, turned on him. Gravano's testimony, combined with FBI recordings, buried Gotti. In 1992, he was convicted of 5 murders, racketeering, conspiracy, life in prison, no parole. Gotti died from throat cancer at 61, and with him, many say, died the American Mafia as we knew it. But if you think mob bosses had brutal endings, you haven't seen how dictators go out. Because from getting executed by their own people to being dragged through the streets to hiding in a bunker while their empire crumbles around them, some of history's most ruthless rulers faced even more shocking ends than these mobsters. So, click this video right here and find out how every notorious dictator died.